All right, all right, all right. We're back here at Song of the Day, coming to you from the Rock Cave. I'm your host, Mark Pierce, as usual. How are you doing today? It is July 26th. It's going to be a hot one today. So let's cut to it. Biggest news yesterday, Peter Green, founding member of Fleetwood Mac, passed away. Not the Fleetwood Mac that we all remember, but a very accomplished blues guitarist, praised by B.B. King and Eric Clapton. He actually filled in for Eric Clapton early in John Mayall's band. And the 56th or something ranked guitarist ever in rock history based on a poll. He went on to do a lot of LSD and hang out in a commune, and mental illness kind of took over. But well-regarded musician, that's for sure. Also in this history, in this date in history, the summer of 1945, we're going back to 1945 because you may not know this about me, but I love 1940s music. I absolutely love it. It's great. And this summer, 1945, people could not get enough of the Andrews Sisters, Rum and Coca-Cola. Love that song, love that group. Maybe we'll do them on Song of the Day one of these days. 1960 this day, Sam Cooke releases the single Chain Gang. We all know that one. 1961, Barry Mann releases the novelty song Who Put the Bomb? Who put the bomb in the bomb to bomb to bomb? Right? Love that 50s music too. That's a great song. It's a song about a guy who listens to doo-wop music, and because he listens to those great songs, he gets the girl. He references Blue Moon, the Edsels Ramalama Ding Dong. He calls her Little Darlin' in it. And Boogity Shoe is Pony Time by Chubby Checker. 1975, in All the Land, the number one song is Van McCoy's The Hustle. Not a lot of lyrics in that one, but The Hustle, I remember that as a kid. 1979, The Clash put out their single I Fought the Law, and the Law won. 1985, Thompson Twins put out their single Lay Your Hands on Me. Another little known fact, I'm a huge Thompson Twins fan. Yep, I am. Not just those songs you hear are the same three you hear. They got a lot of good tunes. We'll play them on Song of the Day. Some of you will be making fun of me for that. But I do love the Thompson Twins. They would later, in the late 90s, early 2000s, two of them would form a band called Babel. And it was basic, like, we call it late night chill music. Like ambient house music, like slow music. Anyway, it was very good. Birthdays today. We got three. Darlene Love, 79 years old today. Mick Jagger is 77. Happy birthday, Mick. And Gary Sharon is 59. Remember him? More Than Words. Can't forget that one. And that little stint that everyone has forgotten about with Van Halen. That was no bueno. All right, so what are we doing today? We're already 3 minutes in. On this date in 1966, the Monkees released their first ever single, I'm Not Your Steppin Stone. That's right, we're doing the Monkees today. This is a long story. I'm going to try to keep it brief, but it is a very long, complicated story. All right, so this guy sees Beatles' Hard Day's Night, decides he wants to make a show like that about a band and put music in it and then sell their records too. And it doesn't go anywhere, and finally it gets picked up after a few years to say, hey, give us a pilot. So he decides he wants to use a band he's heard of that's not signed called the Lovin' Spoonful out of New York. So he wants to go and sign them. So he reaches John Sebastian and says, we want to do this show. And he says, we just signed a contract with the recording contract. So they're like, well, we can't use you because we want to be able to sell your records too. So they put out an ad in local LA area, and it says, Madness, auditions. Folk and roll musicians. Folk and roll is funny. Musicians, singers, acting roles, new TV series, ongoing, running parts, 4 insane boys, 17 to 21, must apply in person. And 437 applicants show up, and the winners are Mickey Dolenz, Michael Nesmith, Peter Tork, and the actor, singer, Davy Jones. So they get them together. They put them in a recording studio, and these guys have mostly played some instruments, mostly guitars or bass. And it's clear they're not ready for the time of the TV, like to put out a record in the time of the TV show. So they end up using studio musicians to get stuff out, and they use their vocals on top of it. This is a long, drawn out process because this is what happens. But when they go to film the show, if you were to use like whose strengths were where, it would be Torque on guitar, Nesmith on bass, Jones on drums, and Dolenz as the singer because his voice was stronger. But when they went to go do that, Davy Jones is so short that when he sits at a drum kit, it just accentuates how short he is. So they decide he can't be the drummer. So they have to figure out who's going to be the drummer on the TV show. And they pick Dolenz. And then when Dolenz is singing on the show, they put Jones on the drums. Maybe they put him on some phone books. So none of them are playing the instrument of their choice on the TV show. They put out this single and the first album. It's intended that the first 2 albums are going to be the soundtrack to the first season of the show. And they have a huge hit on their hands. The album goes to #1 for 7 weeks. It's on the Billboard charts for 78 weeks. They didn't know this was going to happen. It became huge really fast. These guys weren't even up to speed for 4 months in the studio. They just recorded their vocals without the instruments, and they were pissed about it. They wanted to be the musicians on the album. So when the first album came out, it was just a picture of all of them as a band, and they were like, this makes us look like a real band, and we're not a real band. And they were all like, well, everyone knows you're not a real band. And they didn't give any credit to any of the musicians on the record, and they were really mad about that. And as a matter of fact, when they put the second record out, Don Kirshner, who's very famous, he did it all in New York and put out the record without even telling them. Their vocals were on there, but they were all musicians, not them, that were used for that. They didn't even see the cover work. They didn't know anything about it. They had to buy the record themselves. They were so angry. So it turns out over time, the records are selling more than the Nielsen's ratings. So there are more people buying the records than watching the show. So the band wants to be a real band. They want to like play their own instruments and they want to record. And they start fighting, and they get into a big fight with Kirshner. Eventually, like, he gets fired, dismissed in '67. These guys were making tons of money on their music, and they want to go make their own music. And by the time they go do that, it's already too late. They've been made fun of in the press, other bands. Nobody takes them seriously. They can't, like, they're just, people say, you guys are actors. I mean, when they were in interviews, they would say, like, who records this, who does that? And they would even sometimes say, well, we're actors, So there was no way they were going to recover from that. They did get to open up for Jimi Hendrix, July 13th and 16th, 1967. How about that? They opened up for Hendrix. They were huge, but you just couldn't really take them seriously, and they wanted to be taken seriously. So they would put their songs in the middle of the show. I watched this show reruns early 80s, I guess. We must have been watching it on Channel 56 out of Boston. MTV picked it up in the mid-80s and played a whole weekend of it and brought it back that way. I mean, that was a funny show. I had never heard of them until I watched the show, but, I was a latchkey kid and watched a lot of TV. There wasn't a lot on TV, so I thought it was funny, and so I like their music. I like a ton of their songs, but again, couldn't be taken seriously as musicians. So what would they do? They'd break up, and then they'd spend the next 30, 40 years fighting with each other over who has the name the Monkees, who gets publishing rights. They famous for fighting, famous for all that stuff. They'd get back together, parts of them, all of them. I mean, it was just the usual ugliness. So, songs of the day. My song of the day, obviously, is the one that was released today, which is I'm Not Your Stepping Stone, and that is one of my favorite songs by them, so I'll be glad to play that one. I have 2 others. The song She. I've always loved that song. I just think that's a great song. If you've not heard She by the Monkees, make sure you play that. It's just, it's a great song. And then Last Train to Clarksville, of course. Love that song. I didn't mention Daydream Believer. It's probably my 4th favorite song. Anyway, we're closing it on 10 minutes, trying to close it out. That's right, it's Sunday. We're doing the Monkees. If you don't remember the Monkees, give them a shot. See what you think. Enjoy this day, Sunday. It's going to be a good one, like I said. Song of the day. Enjoy it. And as usual, we'll see you on the flip side.